When we bought our first home, my FIL demanded we put it in his name for tax reasons. My husband said he knows what he's doing. I did my research, called a lawyer, and found out it was a setup to keep me from having equity. I confronted them with the facts at a family dinner when my FIL tried to talk over me. I pulled out the printout and said, "Here's what fraud looks like." The table went silent. We bought the house in my name instead. I never thought my biggest enemy would be sitting across from me at my own dinner table smiling like he wasn't trying to steal from me. Let me back up. I'm Natalie. I am 34, and I live in Fort Worth, Texas. I married Jake when I was 30 after 3 years of dating. I thought we had a solid marriage. We didn't fight much, worked hard, and we had the same goals. At least that's what I thought. For years we saved up to buy a house. I'm the one who pushed for it. I started saving back when I was 24, scraping together everything I could. I didn't grow up with much, so owning a home meant something real to me. Security, stability, something no one could take away. Jake contributed to. But the truth is, most of the down payment came from my account. I did the research, hunted for good neighborhoods, talked to realtors, the whole deal. Then one night his dad Dawn calls Jake and invites us over for dinner. Nothing special, just fierce steaks and football on TV. But toward the end, Don dropped the bomb. "You kids had to put that house and my name," he says, leaning back in his chair like he's just solved all our problems. I laughed, thinking he was joking. He wasn't. "It's for tax purposes." He said, "Trust me, you'll save in the long run." I just stared at him. "You mean your name?" "Exactly," he said. "I can write off more. Plus, if anything goes wrong, like a lawsuit or financial issue, you'll be protected." I looked at Jake, waiting for him to laugh it off. Instead, he nodded. "Yeah, that makes sense," Jake said. "It's like what you did for Uncle Ray, right?" "Worked like a charm," Don replied. My stomach twisted. I didn't understand much about taxes, but I knew enough to know that giving your house title to someone else was not normal. It felt wrong, like a trick he wouldn't notice until it was too late. Would we still be the ones paying them? "Mortgage?" I asked. "Of course," Don said, waving his hand. "You live there, you pay it. But it's in your name." "Exactly, it's just paperwork." I said nothing else that night, but something about the way Don smiled at me made my skin crawl. That night I didn't sleep. I lay no to Jake, thinking about all the sacrifices I'd made, the jobs I took on the side, the bonuses I never spent, the weekends I stayed, and to save money. Now his dad wanted to slap his name on the title and call it a smart move. The next day, while Jake was at work, I started researching. At first I looked up the benefits of putting a house in someone else's name. The results weren't comforting. Everything pointed to risk: legal risk, financial risk, and worst of all, ownership risk. Then I searched house in father-in-law's name, no equity, and that's when I saw it. Story after story of women, mostly wives, who lost everything. They paid for the house, kept up with every bill, every repair. But because their names weren't on the deed, they got nothing. When the marriage ended, no equity, no shared, no legal ground to stand on. One woman said her ex's dad sold the house out from under her. Another had to move out within 30 days. Even though she had 3 kids, I read for 3 hours. My hands were shaking. Then I called a real estate lawyer. I paid for the consultation myself. He didn't even hesitate. "Ma'am, if your name is on that deed, the house isn't yours. Doesn't matter what you pay. You don't own it. You have no rights to it." I asked about Dawn's tax strategy. He chuckled. "It's not a strategy, it's control. That setup would give your father-in-law full legal ownership. If anything happens, divorce, death, he can kick you out and keep everything." I thanked him and hung up. I stared at the wall for a long time. Jake had to know. He's not dumb. But the fact that he didn't even bring this up with me, just nodded along like Dawn was some kind of genius that cut deep. So I printed everything: legal definitions, tax warnings, quotes from lawyers, horror stories for women who lost everything. I made a whole damn folder. I didn't say anything to Jake. I waited. The next weekend, Dawn invited the whole family over: his wife, Jake's sister, and her husband, cousins. It was packed. Over dinner, Dawn turned to Jake and asked loud enough for everyone to hear, "So we getting that deed business done?" Jake smiled awkwardly. "We're working on it." That was my cue. I reached into my purse and pulled out the folder. I laid it flat on the table and slid it toward Dawn. "Actually, I've been doing some research," I said. Dawn scoffed. "Oh Lord." I didn't flinch. "Turns out putting the house and your name would mean I have no equity, no rights. I could pay every dime and still walk away with nothing." He waved his hand. "You're being dramatic. That's not how it works." I flipped the top page. "This is a legal document that says exactly that. I even spoke to a lawyer." The room got quiet. Jake looked confused. "Wait, really?" I stared. "Write it down. If this house goes in your name, I lose everything I've worked for. And I'm not letting that happen." Don leaned forward, voice rising. "You're calling me a thief now?" "I'm calling this what it is," I said. Then I held up the page. Here's what fraud looks like. Dead silence. You could hear forks drop. No one said a word. Don looked like he wanted to blow it. Gasket. Jake's sister turned pale. While his mom looked like she wanted to crawl under the table. Jake pulled me aside after dinner. Why would you do that in front of everyone? Because you weren't listening. I said you trusted him over me. I had to make it clear. I'm not just signing over my future because your daddy said so. He didn't say anything, just stared at the ground for 2 days. We barely spoke, then he gave in. We agreed. Buy the house, but in my name. I wasn't being petty, I was being smart. I had the down payment, I'd done the work, and I wasn't going to let anyone take it from me. Don hasn't spoken to me since. Things didn't magically get better after that dinner. If anything, they got worse. Jake agreed to put the house in my name, yes. But it wasn't without resentment. I could feel it, and how quiet he got, how he avoided eye contact when we were signing the papers. He didn't fight me anymore. But he also didn't support me either. He just shut down. We moved into their house a few weeks later. It should have been a happy time, new place, fresh start. But instead the house felt tense, like we were both pretending to be fine when we weren't. Then Jake started pulling away. More late nights at work, locked phone, short answers. I tried to talk to him. Jake, are you mad at me about the house? He shrugged. It's done right. Doesn't matter now. But it didn't matter. He wasn't over it. And I was starting to feel like I had married a stranger. Then one night I saw it. He left his laptop open. Normally I respect his privacy, but something told me to look. Just a feeling. There was a message thread open. An email chain with his cousin Rec, the same cousin whose house was also in dance. Name the subject. She ruined the plan. I opened the thread. My hands were shaking. Jake had written, not found out everything. She lawyered up. Dance fuming. I tried to get her to agree, but she's stubborn. I'm thinking I just write it out until we get something from her. Then I'm gonna get something from her. I sat down hard. My ears were ringing. It wasn't just about the house. Jake had been in on it the whole time. He wasn't being led by Dawn. He was part of the plan. And now that I'd flipped the table on them, they were looking for a new angle. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning I took screenshots. I emailed them to myself. I even printed copies and kept them in a fireproof safe. Then I called the same lawyer I'd spoken to before. What happens if a husband tries to divorce someone after they've moved into a house in only her name? The lawyer chuckled grimly. Well, if it's solely in your name and was bought with your premarital assets, and you can prove his intent wasn't genuine, he's walking away with nothing. That was all I needed to hear. But I didn't confront Jake yet. No, I had to be smarter than that. I started documenting everything, every bill I paid, every repair I authorized, every time he didn't contribute financially. I kept a log of his absences, took photos of receipts. I even put cameras up inside the house, nothing hidden, just regular security cams in case of a break-in. But Jake knew. He knew something had changed. He'd watch me when I wasn't looking. He got quieter, angrier. Then one night I came home to find Dunn sitting in our living room. I froze. He hadn't been to our house since the dinner. He was sitting in my chair sipping of beer like he on the place. Jake let me, and he said, we need to talk. I stayed standing. About what? He gave a tight smile. You think you're smart, you think you won. I didn't say anything, but you're just a girl playing a man's game. He said, you think this house makes you untouchable. I walked straight to the door and opened it. Get out. He chuckled. Didn't move. You really think Jake's going to stay with you? No, you think that ring on your finger means anything anymore? I didn't flinch. I saw the emails. Done. I know everything. That wiped the smirk off his face. You set this up, you and Jake, and when I ruined it, you decided to wait me out. Well, here's the thing. I'm not just going to wait for you to screw me. I'm going to make sure you pay. He stood up, towering over me. Be careful, girl. You're poking the wrong bear. I looked him dead in the eyes. No, you are. He walked out without another word. That night Jake didn't come home. I think he knew it was over. Jake didn't come home for 3 days. No text, no call, nothing. I kept going to work. I paid the mortgage. I fed the dog. I kept the house clean. But my stomach stayed, and not the whole time. The emails, dance, threats, Jake vanishing, it all felt like the beginning of something bigger. And I wasn't wrong. On the 4th day, Jake finally walked in like nothing had happened, tossed his keys on the counter, dropped his bag. Where were you? I am. Asked from the kitchen. Staying with Rick, he said flat. I needed space. I stood there holding a dish towel and my hands like a shield. Did you really think I wouldn't find the emails? His jaw clenched. You weren't supposed to see that. But I did. So what now? He looked me in the eye. What do you want from me? Not you made your power move. You've got your name on the house. What else do you want? The truth. I said from you, not from Weird Dodd, not from Rec, from you. He looked away. It was never supposed to get this far. Down had this idea, said it would protect the family assets, said we'd keep everything in the family. He just didn't want an outsider owning land with our name on it. I took a step closer. So that's what I am. I'm an outsider. Jake didn't answer her. I could have screamed, I could have thrown something, but instead I nodded. I finally saw it clear. They never wanted me to have anything of my own, not land, not equity, not security. I was fine as long as I stayed dependent. Quiet, agreeable. The minute I took control, I became a threat. I started sleeping in the guest room. Over the next few weeks, Jake tried to act normal, cooked dinner some nights, sent done little texts, acted like we could just hit reset. But I wasn't playing along any more than one afternoon. I got a letter from the county courthouse. Jake had filed for divorce. No warning, no conversation, just a legal envelope. At first I panicked, but then I flipped through the documents and realized something. He was still trying to play the long game. The filing asked for equitable distribution of all marital assets, including the house in my name. That was the moment I stopped being scared. I called my lawyer, sent him everything: emails, financial logs, proof of my down payment, documents showing the house was bought with premarital assets. I even handed over the footage from my security cameras showing done in my living room, making threats. My lawyer laughed. When he saw it, he's going to try and come for what you built. Let him. This is going to bury him. The next month turned into a war. Jake tried to argue I used joint funds for the house. My lawyer had bank statements proving otherwise. He tried to say I was emotionally abusive. The judge read his emails and asked him to explain. Write it out until we get something from her. He had no answer. Dance showed up to one of the court dates, just glared at me from the back row. I didn't look away. Then just when I thought it couldn't get any messier, dead Jake's sister Paige called me out of the blue. I thought you should now, she said. Dawn's trying to take a loan out against your house. I blinked. That's not possible. It's in my name. He's telling people it's still in his family's name, she said. He even tried to use a fake document to get pre-approved. That's when it all clicked. They weren't just better, they were desperate. Dawn was in debt deep, and this house, my house, was supposed to be his golden parachute. Now that he didn't have it, he was trying to forge papers to make it look like he's still dead. I hung up with Paige and called my lawyer again. We filed a formal notice with the title company and mortgage lender, put everything on record. That way if Dawn tried to move anything under the table, it had show up as fraud, real fraud, not just the kind I called out over dinner. A week later, I got a letter from the bank confirming a failed attempt to initiate a home equity loan by Dawn. He'd submitted forged documents showing he was the owner. My lawyer moved fast. We filed for a restraining order. We pressed charges for attempted real estate fraud. He even pulled in a contact from the district attorney's office. Suddenly Dawn wasn't smirking anymore, and Jake, he started begging. Jake started calling again. First it was quiet stuff, text, voicemails asking to talk, saying maybe we rushed into divorce. Then came the guilt tripping. We were good once, he said, can't we just fix it? But when none of that worked, he got nasty. He demanded I drop the charges against Dawn, said I was ruining the family. That's when I realized something I hadn't fully admitted to myself until then. Jake never loved me the way I loved him. He liked me. I fit the image. He liked that I worked hard, that I brought in money, that I didn't complain until I did, until I stood up. And when I did, he turned into his father's son. So I didn't back down. I pressed forward. The district attorney's office took the forgery seriously. The fake paperwork Dance submitted, it had his signature, someone else's notary stamp, and claimed ownership of a home he had zero legal connection to. When they looked into his finances, it all came out to other shady deals, unpaid taxes, a construction business, and debt up to its ears. They charged on with real estate fraud and attempted wire or fraud. He was arrested in July. It made the local news. There he was, mugshot on the evening segment, a man who used to bark orders and talk down to everyone like he on the world, now wearing a county jumpsuit. Jake tried to come by after that. He stood on my front porch at night knocking. I didn't open the door, just stared through the people. He looked tired, just tired. I let him knock. I let him stand out there in the dark. Then I turned off the porch light. 3 months later, the divorce was finalized. He didn't get the house, didn't get a dime, and the judge saw right through him. He walked out with his car, some clothes, and a storage unit he had to empty by the end of the month. That was it, done. Took a plea deal, 3 years probation, a fine big enough to ruin him, and a record that will haunt him until he dies. His credits trashed his name. Even worse, Jake moved in with wreck. I heard from someone at work that they're trying to start a new consulting business, but no one's biting. Their reputation's poisoned, and me, I still live in that house. It's quiet now, peaceful. Some nights I sit on the porch with a glass of tea and think about how close I came to losing it all. I think about the version of me that almost said yes, that almost signed everything away for the sake of keeping the peace. That version of me is gone. Here's what I learned the hard way: when someone tells you to give up control for your own good, they're usually the one who benefits. And when someone you love asks you to hand over your future,